Should Michael Van Buren preserve his redshirt year? Frank Wilson has thoughts, and so do we. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. And thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network on the face of the earth. We're fired up for it and glad to have you aboard with us. So LSU is getting set to play Arkansas Saturday. And with 3 regular season games remaining, there's a very real, honest conversation that we have to have about a handful of players on this team. And that's, do you burn their red shirt? You probably are familiar with the rule that players can play in up to 4 games and maintain their red shirt. Remember, this is something that Whit Weeks did a season ago. He had battled injury. They made the decision late that if they needed him, he would play. But if they could, they would preserve his red shirt so he could come back this year. And ultimately, he did. There's a few other players that I want to talk about, and you'll hear Frank Wilson's general thoughts on that. But the one that is at the center of this conversation is LSU quarterback Michael Van Buren. Now, I know. Frank Wilson has said they're going to run a 2-quarterback system. Both Van Buren and Nussmeier are going to play. We saw Van Buren replace Nussmeier in the third quarter against Alabama. And that's the 3rd game this season that Michael Van Buren has played, which means he can play in 1 more of the final 3 and still maintain that redshirt year. And I know what fan sentiment is, that you're ready to see Michael Van Buren play. You're ready for the new era. You're ready to move on. I've spoken my piece on this. If you want to catch it, you can catch it in a previous episode. And shout out to our everydayers. I would love to see Nussmeier have the opportunity to finish his career as the starter. That's what I would like to see in a nutshell. A guy that's been loyal, been patient, and you have nothing to play for. I would let Nussmeier go play out the string and finish his career in these final 3 games. But the Van Buren conversation is also an important one, because not only is this an opportunity maybe to play Van Buren to get him more ready for next season, or to evaluate him for next season, the flip side of it is your quarterback situation is in dire straits. Let me remind you that in the spring, when Brian Kelly, of course, was still the head coach, Brian Kelly, in a press conference, said that all of the quarterbacks other than Garrett Nussmeier were going to redshirt this year. That was Michael Van Buren, that was Colin Hurley, and at the time, Juwan Johnson. Now, we know Juwan Johnson has played running back, and he has played in all the games, so he's not obviously going to redshirt this season, but that changed when you lost JT Lindsey. So when you look at it, you're in even more dire straits, because going into next season, losing Garrett Nussmeier, you've only got 2 scholarship quarterbacks, provided they both come back, Michael Van Buren and Colin Hurley. So do you really want to burn a redshirt year for Michael Van Buren for whatever the remainder of this season might be? Here was Frank Wilson with his thoughts on Michael Van Buren potentially redshirt.
Michael's no different than the rest of them. If he can come in and contribute and help us to win, it's something he wants to do. It's something that we want him to do, because we think he has tremendous value to us.
I think that is selfless of Michael Van Buren. However, I do not think that is smart of Michael Van Buren. We just went through some of the particulars there about the future of the quarterback position. And you all know how it ended up this way. Bryce Underwood flipped. You didn't have a quarterback for 2025. Because you had Underwood committed for 25, you were late getting in on 26. You're in on some guys. You haven't landed a quarterback yet for 2026. Maybe you can flip Duckworth, the South Carolina commit. Bottom line is, you are thin on numbers at quarterback, both for 2026 and beyond. Now, you got Peyton Houston committed for 2027, but are Van Buren, Hurley still around? You go into the transfer portal. It is a real challenge to look ahead. And so I very much respect Michael Van Buren wanting to play and help the team. But there's a few things that are obvious. Number one is the fact that it's already a lost season. You're 5-4. You should beat Western Kentucky at home. You should beat Arkansas at home. Probably going to lose at Oklahoma. So you're probably looking at a 7-5 season. Is it really worth burning Michael Van Buren's red shirt to play out the string in a lost season? That's one. Two, maybe the answer to that question is different if Van Buren is the starter. So as to say, if Garrett Nussmeier were unavailable for whatever reason, hurt, sick, opt-out, whatever, if Nussmeier were unavailable, then I could say, look, you got to have a quarterback, and he steps up and plays, and he starts the final 3 games. That's one thing. But look at his snap counts this year. He played 26 snaps against Southeastern. He played just 11 snaps against Texas A&M. And then he played 21 snaps this past weekend against Alabama. So what if a similar situation plays out against Arkansas? Is it worth playing Van Buren for 15 to 20 snaps in the second half of a game against Arkansas? Or 21 snaps in the second half against Western Kentucky? Like, is it worth burning the redshirt year for a reserve role in a lost season? I don't think so. Obviously, from an LSU perspective, and I'll just use Garrett Nussmeier as the shining example. In 2021, now this is before they implemented the Garrett Nussmeier rule, but in 2021, bowl games counted against your eligibility. So Nussmeier played in 4 games in 2021, and so he had a decision to make. Does he play in that Texas Bowl against Kansas State and burn a year of eligibility, or does he sit out and preserve the year of eligibility? Well, we know what happened. They played John Trey Kirkland in the bowl game. Nussmeier preserved a year of eligibility, and that's why he was able to play this year. And oh, by the way, also get paid 7 figures to play this year and lead LSU to a preseason top 10 and all the things we thought were going to be great this year. It didn't manifest, obviously, but that's the conversation I think Michael Van Buren has to be thinking about for 2028, which would be his 5th season in college. Look, he played 9 games a year ago at Mississippi State. When Blake Shapen got hurt, he was the starter. So that would be different if Van Buren were going to be starting the remaining 3 games and playing the entire game. We're just talking about a 2-quarterback system with a 5th-year senior who's still likely going to take the majority of the reps and the snaps. That's really hard to make sense of why you would do that. What is the benefit of doing that for Michael Van Buren, other than fans are just ready to see somebody different? From Frank Wilson's perspective, obviously he needs to win if he's trying to win this job. And if it feels like Van Buren gives him the best chance to win, that would make sense. But again, I would argue it's about making a decision in this case in a lost season that's better for LSU, or better for Michael Van Buren and his future and LSU's future than this year. I mean, we talk about moments like this in LSU history. Travis Daniels in 2001 SEC championship game against Tennessee. Travis Daniels came off the bench, burned his red shirt due to injury. I mean, he lost a full season of eligibility, but he came in a spot in a championship game where LSU needed him. He played great. So there are examples. Like if LSU were still contending for something of significance and they needed Michael Van Buren, it would feel different. 3 games left in a lost season in a reserve role. Do you really want to burn that year? Apparently the answer is yes. I don't necessarily agree with that. We'll see how it all plays out Saturday in Tiger Stadium. The other part of this that I asked Frank Wilson was just about any other players that that could be making a redshirt decision.
For us, the responsibility and the want to of our players, if they can go into a game and contribute in a major way for us to have an opportunity to win that game, they would like to, and we would like them to be in position to do so. We have some guys, or a guy or 2, that may have played 2 snaps on a field goal or field goal block unit. In those cases, consideration and recommendation of protecting their red shirt is something that's under consideration. It's certainly something that we would certainly be open to. A guy that is playing 30 snaps on offense, defense, or special teams, we still got a lot of season. We got 3 games in a bowl game on the horizon. And so we would like to be able to move forward and use those contributions to help us win these games.
So what he's saying there, and that's he said a lot without saying a lot, but what he's saying there is if you had a guy that's maybe playing a couple of snaps on special teams, probably not going to burn a red shirt. If you have a guy that's contributing, then they're going to continue playing him. So a couple of names to keep in mind: Zion Williams, Jace Thomas, Aiden Anding. Those are the three that I think you really kind of need to keep an eye on as far as their snap counts and if they play. So Aiden Anding has played in one game defensively. Jace Thomas, one game defensively. Now, these guys have played special teams. And then Zion Williams on the season has played in, forgive me, I'm trying to find it quickly. Zion Williams. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm scanning quickly to see it. I didn't have it in front of me. My apologies. So anyway, Zion Williams is another one of the guys that they're keeping an eye on as far as who hasn't played a ton of snaps, but they're keeping the eye on to see about possibly maintaining that redshirt year. So anyway, just some of the young guys that we'll be keeping an eye on. But the primary one, of course, is what do you do over these final 3 games with Michael Van Buren? I've spoken my piece. You've heard from Frank Wilson. Of course, you can let me know what you think anytime right here on Locked On LSU. The Tigers will play Arkansas, and the big question, will they have Whit Weeks? Will they have Aaron Anderson? Frank Wilson gives those updates next. Locked On LSU, your team every day. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And we're brought to you by SupplyHouse. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. The Part Finder tool and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit SupplyHouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's SupplyHouse.com. Real people, real service. So Frank Wilson, meeting with reporters, did give a few other updates on the SEC coaches teleconference Wednesday morning. Remember, Wednesday evening is when the first official availability report will come out. And he was explaining updates on, Whit Weeks and Aaron Anderson. Let's start with Whit.
Whit was at practice yesterday. He moved around. He'll move around again today, and we'll see. We'll see how he holds up. Today is our Grit Wednesday, so it's a little more taxing than earlier in the week. It'll be a lot less going at Thursday and Friday preparation. So today's a pivotal day for him in his practice to see how his body holds up. And so we're anxious to see how that happens. Certainly could use his contributions and his leadership on the field, but we got to play it day by day.
Said he was moving around. Well, Frank Wilson was asked to follow up. What specifically does that mean that he's moving around? What is he doing at practice?
Practicing with the team, spot practicing, no boot, in attire, moving about, transitioning, but not what on yesterday, not what body weight against him. He'll get that today to see how he sustains and move with actual weight against him.
Okay, so what he's saying is he was out there in uniform, right? So his helmet, shoulder pads, out there in pads, and he's moving, doing all the things, but he's not hitting. He doesn't have body weight against him. He doesn't have offensive linemen leaning on him. So you're talking about a guy who's got a lower leg injury that he suffered against Ole Miss, had the bye week after that, played against South Carolina, where clearly the issue became a major issue. And now since then, he's missed Vanderbilt, he's missed Texas A&M. There was an open date, Alabama. So it's been 4 now full weeks. And actually, if you go game to game, it'll be 5 weeks from South Carolina to when they take the field against Arkansas if that's enough time for Whit Weeks. And for this type of injury, what you typically hear is 4 to 6 weeks. So you're in that window. It's about pain tolerance and what he can do. And if Whit Weeks is available, is healthy and able, you heard Frank Wilson say, we could use him. He's right. And you're facing Taylor Green, who is the best dual threat quarterback on your schedule. And you face some good ones that have hurt you. Trinidad Chambliss from Ole Miss hurt you. Diego Pavia hurt you throwing and running. Obviously, Marcel Reed from Texas A&M blistered you, ran for over 100 yards in that game for Texas A&M. So, yes, if you can get Whit Weeks back, even in some limited capacity, you would love to have him back for this football game. And then the other is Aaron Anderson. Frank gave the update on Nick Anderson earlier in the week. The knee, not as severe as they thought. They take it day by day. Unlikely to play this week, but certainly I think we'd expect Nick Anderson back at some point. What about Aaron Anderson? Remember, he banged his elbow, returned with a brace on that elbow, and it was his left elbow. Returned with a brace on that elbow, landed on it again, and then exited for good the second time. Well, what about an update on Aaron Anderson?
Aaron is up and moving about. He'll be in a limited capacity, but moving around. He moved around well yesterday. We'll look at him again today, but I think he'll be ready to go for Saturday.
That's great news. Listen, you're better as an offense with Aaron Anderson on the field than you are without Aaron Anderson on the field. That goes without saying. He, at the time of his injury, was your leading receiver. If you look on the season for LSU, overall season offensive grades, Garrett Nussmeier is your highest graded player on offense with a 78.6 grade. Aaron Anderson's next at 76.1 before you get to Braylon Moore at 72.8. So Aaron Anderson, not only does he do so much with the ball in his hands, but his ability to play without the ball as well. As a veteran receiver, a former 5-star, a guy that knows how to get open, has made plays for you. Your leading receiver a year ago in yards and in receptions. You'd love to have Aaron Anderson out there this week against an Arkansas defense that is one of the worst in the country in every statistical category. So, yes, this would stand to reason. It would be a game if you keep Garrett Nussmeier or Michael Van Buren upright. There's going to be a lot of plays to be made in that secondary. Okay, we'll keep you posted as we move throughout. Wednesday night is when the first availability report will be released for LSU and Arkansas for the game Saturday morning in Tiger Stadium. Okay, that'll do it for us here on today's bonus episode of Locked On LSU. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.